Hello everyone, back to you into today's first video. We're going to have a look at weather the next week's 10 days in today's first video. So it's going to take us to around the 7th of December. So we're going into the first week of December with this update. We're going to have cold weather coming up through the rest of this week. Probably going to get a little bit less cold or milder over the weekend. And then a little bit of uncertainty about next week. Yesterday there was a strong suggestion that we'll get another push of really cold northerly winds. The model sort of wobbled a little bit about that this morning, but overall I think the weather is still looking rather cold as we're going through the course of next week. So I'll show you everything that's happening in a moment. Bear in mind that when you're in these blocked weather conditions, when you've got northern blocking, the unreliable time frame is reduced. It's a lot closer to the time you're at. So in a zonal setup, in a westerly setup, the unreliable time frame generally starts at around a week away, something like that. But in a block setup, the unreliable time frame probably comes down to around 4 or 5 days out. So that's one of the reasons for a lot of the chopping and changing. And you do have to have an even greater pinch of salt about model output that's beyond 5 days when you're in a block setup, compared to, as I say, when you're in a zonal setup, westerly setup, when generally it's quite reliable up to about a week away. So I'll tell you for everything that's going on in a moment. Just to say that this evening I think I'm going to do the first snow watch of the year, because, or of the winter, because wind's going to be in from the north over the next few days. There will be a little bit of wintry potential in with that as well, I think. So we'll see where the snow showers are likely to be around the middle part of the week in Snow Watch this evening. But let's get on with today's first video before we think about that. So we're going to start off with the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here tells where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. Red lines at the end where GFS samples are forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. Remember, this is just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere over North Pole. It doesn't drive anything, just tells you what the atmosphere is doing. When the Arctic Oscillation is positive, you've got low pressure up over the pole. You're strengthening the westerlies through the mid-latitudes, particularly through the Atlantic and into Europe. And so a positive Arctic Oscillation tends to be a mild signal in winter for the UK and for Europe as well. Conversely, a negative Arctic Oscillation tells you you've got high pressure up over the pole, you've got blocking. And blocking is a way that you get the cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitude. So a negative Arctic Oscillation tends to be a cold signal. Not guaranteed though, because it always depends where the blocking is sitting as to where the cold air is being pushed out. And if there's one place that's on the cold side of the blocking and with high pressure, somewhere else will be on the milder side of it. So a negative Arctic Oscillation isn't as guaranteed for cold weather as a positive Arctic Oscillation is relatively straightforward in terms of milder conditions, but it's one of the things that we look at to determine whether we have got blocking over the pole. So you can see from the black line that we have been in generally positive AO condition back to the summer, sometimes close to neutral, occasionally going negative, but overall quite positive with the Arctic Oscillation up to the early part of November. From mid-November we've had a change. We went very negative just after mid-month. We've gone back up to neutral just about right now, but it is going negative again if we believe the GFS ensembles. In fact, we are going to see a plunge in the Arctic Oscillation through the early part of December. This is the 1st of December just here. So some really negative Arctic Oscillation ensemble members there. And this tells us that we are probably going to have a renewed bout of northern blocking over Greenland and the North Pole, which may well give us another push of northerly winds through the course of next week. Does look as though we might have entered a long-term sort of period of negativity of the Arctic Oscillation to be. These indexes tend to run in blocks of around 2-3 months. It looks as though from around the middle of November we may well have entered, after quite an extended period of positive AO conditions, we might well have entered a period of negative AO conditions. If that's right, at very least it could imply further cold weather is likely through December at least, maybe even extending into January too, but that's a little bit more speculative. By February, we're probably going to be swinging back into positive AO conditions, if anything. This is the North Atlantic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. Again, same idea. The black line tells us where we've been with the NAO, the red lines at the end where GFS Stumbles forecasting the NAO to go. We go back into summer again when we had a negative North Atlantic oscillation, went positive through the early part of September and then through the early part of October, positive again. Since the middle of November when the AO started trending negative, so too has the NAO. So we've got both of the indexes around neutral right now, and GFS Stumbles again predicting that the NAO will be trending negative through the early part of November. So it looks like early November we're going to have both the AO and the NAO in negative territory. This could well be a signal for colder conditions. This is the from the Penn State University website. It's 500 millibar height anomaly flow chart for the next 7 to 10 days. We've got the ECMWF here on the top of the GFS, which I've looked at in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure and low pressure are being moved around by a jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. You can see what the ECMWF is doing. It's got this large ridge in the northern Atlantic. It's also extending it up towards Greenland, and it extends back into the Arctic. So very extensive blocking feature there, and also a little bit going down in central parts of Russia as well. That's a huge area of high pressure across the northern latitudes. Underneath it, we've got this cold trough in over Scandinavia and also down into northeastern parts of Europe. So what's going to be important for next week is whether we do something like that with the flow and with the jet stream. If we do, then it will be cool because the air is coming off Greenland. It's coming from the northern Atlantic. So that will be quite a cool scenario, but not desperately cold. However, if we move this ridge further northwards back up to here, centre it around there, then what we're going to do with the trough here is we'll pull down a direct northerly from the Arctic. So only a very, very slight adjustment would be needed there to really open the floodgates, some proper cold Arctic air once again next week. So far, these northerly winds haven't packed too much of a punch. I think the northerly wind that's coming up this week will pack more of a punch than last week's northerly. And if we get the northerly again next week, that will probably pack even more of a punch, because as each northerly shot comes through, it's going to start getting colder and colder, just purely from the fact that the Arctic is cooling down rapidly now as we're going into the winter. GFS is very similar. So again, we've got this huge blocking feature. We've got it to the south of Greenland, it extends up through Greenland, goes back to the Arctic, and then down into western parts of Russia as well. They've got this cold trough over Scandinavia and also extending down more into central and eastern parts of Europe. The flow and the jet stream is going something a bit like that. So again, it's a complicated type pattern that we've got there. Again, we do have some influence from the northern Atlantic, which is modifying the effect of the cold winds. So it's quite a cold scenario. We're bringing the air out of Greenland, probably importing some Arctic temperatures into that as well. It's not a direct northerly shot in a 7 to 10 day time frame. That only a very, very slight adjustment would see us tapping into. So I would say next week is shaping up either to be cool to cold or cold to very cold. They're going to be our options, I would have thought, for next week. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles next 2 weeks. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. Look at Norwich today, by the way. So we're starting off colder than average today. We're going to cool things down further through the rest of the week, becoming really quite cold in the second half of the week. That is probably cold enough for snow. We have got precipitation spikes showing up as well as showers come in from off the North Sea. So I think east areas will have a risk of some wintry conditions through the middle part of the week. And of course, we are going to have a look at Snow Watch and see what we think to that. Then beyond that, we're going to start start to try and lift temperature up a little bit, but you notice it's still generally staying below the red line. It's still generally staying below the 30-year temperature average from start to finish. The white line here is the ensemble means. That's grouping together each individual sort of member of the ensembles and coming up with an ensemble mean. You see that white line, let's trace it, it stays solidly below, it gets quite close to the red line there, but overall it stays solidly below the red line pretty much from start to finish, from here over to there, indicating that the GFS ensembles are still forecasting the weather to stay colder than average anyway through the first half of December. I mean, we're going up to the 13th of December just there, and even then the white line, the ensemble mean, is still colder than average, albeit by then we have got quite a lot of scatter. So we have got several ensemble members that are going much milder. We've got several that are very cold. So that's open to speculation, of course, as always with these charts. The further out you go, the more they diverge. But generally, the model is looking at cold conditions, I think, at least for the next week to 10 days. These are the temperature anomalies for the next week. Look at this. We've gone colder than average. This is temperature anomaly for the 27th of November to 5th of December. UK, Ireland, in fact, most of Central Western Europe coming out colder than average. It's in the east, the southeast of Europe, that we're coming out a little bit milder, a little bit warmer than average. But in the western through Central Europe, it's coming out solidly colder than average, and the British Isles is included in that. And just look at America. Anybody that thinks that it's always America that is getting the cold weather, and the UK and Western Europe suffers or enjoys, whichever weather type you prefer, but gets the mild conditions. Not the case this week, because this is the temperature anomaly from the 27th of November to the 5th of December, the United States, and pretty much all parts from coast to coast, from the Pacific coast over there to the eastern seaboard over there, and all points in between, coming out warmer than average. A very mild first week of December for the United States, in complete contrast to these much colder conditions over in central and western parts of Europe. So this week, anyway, may not be the case the rest of winter, but certainly for this week, the cold weather is on the right side of the Atlantic if you want it. Precipitation anomalies from the 27th of November to 5th of December, they're coming out drier than average for the UK and Ireland, so a cold and dry week generally coming up. It does look more unsettled in the southern and southeastern parts of Europe. This is the GFS for Thursday. We're pulling down this cold north to northeast wind that could well contain wintry showers, snow showers. As I said, we'll update Snow Watch for the first time this winter this evening. Friday, still maintaining that more of an easterly flow across England and Wales, so that could blow those snow showers further inland actually on Friday. Further north, the high pressure beginning to topple into Scotland and Northern Ireland, so becoming mostly dry there. And still cold, but probably losing the wintry shower risk. Then over the weekend, this high pressure slips a little bit further southward. So you see we start off on Thursday with the high pressure centred way to our north and west. By Saturday, that high pressure, its centre is just off the west coast of Ireland, and this means we start to topple around the top some milder air. Now, I think Saturday is probably still going to be quite cold for England and Wales, but probably turning cloudier for Scotland and Northern Ireland. And as this milder air sort of rolls over the top, we may start to get some problems with fog as the milder air rolls over the cold ground. We might start to get problems with fog over the weekend. That continues into Sunday as well, by which time I think that milder air, or let's say less cold air probably, has even got down into the south and the southeast. Then we go through to the early part of next week, and on Monday it's looking relatively mild again. But by Tuesday, this high pressure is starting to try and push back up towards Greenland. So yes, the winds are beginning to swing back into the north again. on Tuesday. That's bringing another push of cold air down across particularly the northern part of the country. Through to the middle part of next week, it is looking cold, particularly so in the north and the east. The west is just about trying to hang on to those milder conditions. Bear in mind, we are seeing a lot of chopping and changing in terms of the detail for this period, so I don't think it's necessarily going to play out exactly as this is showing, but certainly the suggestion is there to bring those winds back into the north and have another push of cold air from the north again. By day 10, we're possibly trying to bring low pressure into that cold air. That could be fun and games if that comes off, because the low pressure will move in from the Atlantic, try and bring mild air and rain from the Atlantic, but as it comes up against the cold air, there could be snow with that as well. But we have gone a very, very long way out now. We're beyond day 10, and in this kind of setup, as I said at the start, really the reliable time frame, probably no more than around 5 days out actually, so we're way beyond the reliable time frame now. But just a suggestion with this GFS run, this latest 6 o'clock run, that we're probably going to keep it quite cold pretty much of next week, maybe with a growing threat of rain or snow as well. And then finally the E70S, so there's the northerly winds coming down through the second half of this week. We tilt the winds more into the northeast. On Friday, that could start to blow those snow showers inland, perhaps at the end of the week. We'll have a look at that on Snow Watch tonight. Then into the weekend, high pressure remains very, very close to us, but we're toppling around the top some slightly milder or maybe less cold air. Struggling to get that down into the far south and southeast though, but certainly for the north and west it's turning milder over the weekend. Probably a lot of cloud, maybe some fog in with that too. Those conditions continue into the start of next week before eventually the E70S starts to push those heights back up towards Greenland. So through the course of next week, turns colder again by day 10, way beyond the reliable period in this kind of setup. But by day 10, the E70F has us back into those northerly winds once again, as the blocking feature is out to our north and to our west. And just have a look at the upper air temperatures, see how much cold air we bring down with that northerly wind. So it looks proper cold. In fact, the -10 ice firm starting to move in towards the north of Scotland. So it's staying pretty cold really for the time being. The rest of this week to the weekend is going to be cold, and there may be some wintry conditions, particularly from the north and the east, I would have thought, but we'll determine that on Snow Watch later on, around 7 o'clock this evening. Then going out beyond that, it looks as though what's going to happen is that the weekend will probably turn a little bit milder, particularly for the north. We may struggle to get that down into the south and the southeast, but by Sunday we should all be feeling less cold, probably with quite a lot of cloud, maybe with some fog. And then early next week, two options really. We might keep those less cold conditions going with it staying mainly dry, or we might get that high pressure going back up towards Greenland. If we do, we'll get a renewed push of cold air from the Arctic, and that will give us another cold spell through the course of next week. Certainly looking very different at the moment for the start of December compared to what we've had in the last few years. Well, I think I'd go back to 2012 for the last time we had quite a cold first half to December. So it's all looking rather more seasonable than we've had it for quite a long while. Still no December to remember, still no December 2010 with severe cold and deep snow at this stage. And I put the caveat in at this stage because we never know how this is going to evolve over the next week or two. Right, that's all for now. Snow Watch this evening. Thanks for watching.